It's like they're subconsciously, they know they can always earn more if something terrible were to happen and they were to lose a chunk of their money.
How quickly could we make enough money that we could just live off of it? And that was the measuring stick. Along the way, something changed where all of a sudden I realized, actually, I'm just having so much fun.
Everyone understands that they should spend more time taking better care of themselves and spend more time dating their spouse and spend more time with their kids and spend more time sleeping.
Welcome to Money Mavericks, the podcast where we explore the dynamic world of finance, investment, and entrepreneurship.
I'm Kirk Drake.
And I'm Daryl Hicks. Together, we're here to bring you the latest insights, expert opinions from the trailblazers who are redefining success in the financial world.
I remember coming back to what Kirk was saying. I remember when I talk about this with my buddies who we were starting businesses, running small businesses, and the goal was to see how quickly we could retire. How quickly could we make enough money that we could just live off of it? And that was the measuring stick. Along the way, something changed where all of a sudden I realized, actually, I'm just having so much fun. Like, what would it be like to build a life that I didn't have to retire from or that I didn't want to retire from? Which still, there's a lot of issues around that. Like, my kids haven't completely made their peace with this idea. Like, what do you mean you're always going to be working? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, look, it might look a little different than it does today, but I'm always going to have some projects on the go. Like, I want to have a seat at the table and doing interesting things when I'm like 80, 85 years old. And I'll have a lot of value from all the experience that I've accrued over all the years that I want to provide to people as well. But I think that this is it's not many people that get to that point. Like, the idea that I had starting out in business was just the idea of society imposed upon me, right? Before you stop and start to ask yourself some deeper questions of why am I even thinking this way? Or it's just, well, this is what everybody does, right? And this is how society works. You're going to work. Maybe you have a job you hate. Maybe you have a job you love. Most people, don't really like what they do to make a living. It's something that they have to do, kind of to your point, so that you can get to this end goal. I love the fact that you're like calling that into question. Why this book? Calling all of this into question and helping people to reframe it.
So look, in theory, deciding to work longer and planning to have income coming in longer than what you were previously thinking should directly translate into you having more time to spend with your kids and your spouse and your friends and everyone else right now. So I share a story in the book called A Tale of Two Tonys, and it's about a guy, Tony, who's 45 years old. He makes $150,000 a year, and he has $150,000 saved up for retirement. His financial advisor tells him if he wants to have a traditional retirement at 65, he needs to save about $2,400 a month between now and then, adjusted for inflation every single year. And that's a non-starter for most people. I mean, that's 20% total of what he's making. That's close to him saving as much as he is spending when you back out taxes. So most people in that situation, they freak out. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm behind. I have to spend even less time at the gym and less time sleeping and less time with my family. I have to catch up. Tony's wife in the book, I'm skipping over a lot of the fun, dramatic flair, but she's like, look, you're not going to ever stop working. Like, you like what you do. You like the people that you do it with. Even if you're not doing this, you'll probably be doing something else. So he calls up his financial advisor and he says, okay, can you change the age to 75 instead of 65? And what that does to the numbers is that in the first example, we had to save $2,400 a month to stop working at 65. That number goes down to $110 per month if he were to stop working at 75, which is a 96% reduction in the amount that he has to save. So you can just feel the collective sigh of relief that people have when I present this to them. And the reason for it is, in the first example, we have 10 less years of saving, 10 less years of that money compounding. And then we need the money to last for 30 years because in both scenarios, I have him dying at 95. In the second example, he has 10 more years of working, 10 less years of needing to pull the money out, 10 additional years of compounding interest, and then the money only has to last for 20 years. And we've all seen these articles about how we should have saved more when we were 22 to take advantage of compounding interest. And whether we did or we didn't, we sort of feel dumb for not doing it more. But look, we're making, hopefully we're making a lot more money now than we were at that time. You don't see any articles talking about how you get the same benefit by just letting it sit for an extra 10 or 15 years longer on the back end, right? And so I'm creating real dollars in real time for people seemingly out of thin air. Like everyone understands that they should spend more time taking better care of themselves and spend more time dating their spouse and spend more time with their kids and spend more time sleeping. But at the end of the day, there's this pink elephant in the room, which is, well, how am I going to afford to do this? And what I'm here to tell people is that you can afford it because you're going to have this income coming in later on now that you weren't previously counting on. And that's sponsoring you to make these different choices right now. It's almost like someone's writing a check. Your future self is writing a check for your current self to allow you to now like be home in time for more dinners, go to the gym more, play more golf, hang out with your friends, do all of that.
Yeah. That's a really those are some powerful numbers, from $2,400 all the way down to, what'd you say, 110?
Yeah. And if
Just
he
by
works until he's 70 instead of 75, an extra 5 years, the number goes from $2,400 down to $600. It's a 75% reduction in what Tony has to save by just agreeing and acknowledging, yeah, I'm probably going to work a little bit longer. And I like, how much time have people really thought about why they picked the age of 65 for the age that they want to retire? And I'm sure if somebody hates what they're doing, the idea of doing it for a second longer sounds terrible. And I'm also here to tell people that I don't think sitting around and sipping lemonade on your front porch for 30 years is going to provide lasting happiness for you either. So maybe
Yeah,
it's,
you can only drink so many margaritas on the beach, right?
right. Totally, man.
But it's totally true. At some point, I try to do one big adventure trip where my phone doesn't work, some foreign country every single year. And at some point I sat down, I was like, well, in retirement, maybe I'll do more of that. And I was like, well, how many more would I be willing to do? And I was like, I think at 3, I'd be like totally tapped out. Right.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine they're like, cause you figure for 20 years, if you went on 3 10-day adventure trips around the world, like, I mean, how much it would be too much.
We're not selfish workaholics, guys, who are married to our jobs. Like there was a survey done on comparing happiness versus meaning. And there was 2 groups of people. Group A were people that prioritized happiness. They woke up every morning and said, my goal for today is to make myself happy. I want to do whatever I have to do to make myself happy. And the second group said, my goal is to wake up and contribute and to have purpose and meaning beyond myself and my own personal happiness. And what they found when they hooked everybody up to brain wires and heart monitors and all of that is that the people that were really just looking after themselves, the inflammation markers went through the roof. Their immunity went down. They were more likely to get sick and die. Whereas the group that prioritized meaning had a purpose, had a bigger reason for being here than just like serving themselves. It was the opposite. The inflammation markers went down. They were less likely to get sick or to get a disease. And the moral of the story is, if you want to be happy, don't pursue happiness directly. Like I'm already starting to get feedback from people that are reading my book and telling me how much it's changing their lives. Like, I don't know that there's anything that feels better than that. You know what I mean? Like to have a stranger say, this idea that you shared caused me to do something differently. That's making me have a better relationship with my daughter right now. You know what I mean? Like that makes me feel really, really good. And it's not taken away from the time that I'm spending with my kids or my wife or myself either. So yeah, like I think that's a big piece of it.
Yeah. And knowing you as well as I do, Derek, I know that you've got a tremendous amount of love in your heart. And that was a real
Thanks.
motivation for you in writing the book as well, because the lessons are really powerful, and just getting them out into people's hands. And then, yeah, I can't even imagine to get to see that kind of impact and have that feedback coming in from total strangers. It's awesome, which kind of makes me think, obviously you're drinking your own Kool-Aid here, and Derek's not retiring anytime soon. What game do you want to play now? Going back to your analogy of, the games that you want to play, what do you want to play now?
So, gosh, we could take this in a couple of different directions. I think the game that I'm playing right now is I've got a 15 and a 12-year-old, 2 boys, almost 15 and 13, and they're going to be gone in 3 to 5 years. And I'm in max out the time that I get to spend with them right now is the game that I'm playing. I think a big part of the reason why I moved forward with this book, though, is that my kids were the recipients of a pretty amazing life based off of a lot of the work that I did in my 20s that we talked about before. They hadn't really seen me doing something like launching something, right? Like they were too young when Cadre started to see how that sort of took off. And I wanted them to get a feel for what that was like. And I'm glad I'm able to do that for them. I think that the game I'm playing right now is really just optimizing myself, my connection with God, so that I can really just sort of show up in advance whatever I'm feeling called to do. So I promise I'm not going to get religious with you guys, but there's a story that I love in the Bible called the parable of the sower. And it's a story where the seed in this story is synonymous with connection to God. Feel free to call this connection with the highest version of yourself if you don't believe in God. There's 4 different scenarios. A seed falls down, lands on the pavement, and gets swooped up by a bird. Nothing happens. Second seed falls down, lands in a crack, starts to sprout, can't take root on anything, withers and dies. Third seed falls down, lands in soil in a thorn bush. So it takes root, but then gets choked out by all of the weeds. Fourth and final seed lands in fertile soil, and it produces 100-fold what was intended. The reason I like this story is it doesn't work the majority of the time. If we're talking fertile soil, like my body, my mind, my spirit, if it's not in optimal conditions, it's not going to have the spark. It's not going to feel like it's being called into something. So it either doesn't work, and it never does what it's supposed to do. It either doesn't work or it does 100-fold what was intended. And where I am right now is I am of the belief that the best person that any of us can get advice from is the highest and most optimized version of us, right? So it's the best version of me. Instead of me having goals, instead of me thinking about what's my purpose, what's the next thing that I want to work on, I'm thinking about optimizing my sleep, my protein intake, my diet, my relationships, my central nervous system, and waking up every day feeling really clean and really pure. And then I expect those things to reveal themselves to me, and I'll be ready to see them when they pop up.
On Money Mavericks, we don't just talk about making money. We explore the innovative strategies and bold decisions that drive real change. Whether you're an experienced investor, a budding entrepreneur, or just someone looking to make smarter financial choices, we've got something for you.
Every week, we're going to sit down with industry leaders, visionaries, and mavericks who share their journeys, challenges, and breakthroughs, from contrarian views on market trends to the secrets behind building a successful startup. You get an inside look at what it takes to thrive in today's economy.
And we promise to keep it real, engaging, and most importantly, actionable. No jargon, no fluff. Just straightforward conversations that you can apply to your own financial journey.
So get ready to challenge your thinking, expand your knowledge, and take control of your financial future. This is Money Mavericks,
where we turn financial dreams into realities and mavericks into legends.
That's such a powerful lesson, Derek. And I think, putting aside what we were talking about earlier, which we both agree, I think we all agree that, in your 20s, this is the time where you go out and you just hustle hard. You've got the strength, the energy, and you need to get out there and build those relationships and contacts and network and really accelerate through creating a foundation for yourself. But the earlier on in your life that you can really approach this idea of balance. I love this idea of the fertile soil. Is the soil inside of me? Am I this fertile soil? So that as good things are coming into my life, they can actually take root and they can blossom and they can turn into really beautiful things. And how do I, how do I need to show up, and what sort of mentality, which again, going back to what you're teaching in the book of hey, you don't have to be so stressed out. There's freedom in this new sort of shift in your mind. You have more time than you think. You need less than what you think. And the pressure
to
valve.
get yourself right even. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's going to have a tremendous positive impact on people. So that's awesome. I absolutely.
I think that our society places too much emphasis on the long-term benefits of good personal care choices. So you hear a lot of people talk about how getting great sleep will help you 20 years from now. And I don't doubt that. And I know that to be true, but you don't hear a lot of people talking about how getting great sleep will help you 20 hours from now. And I think if I sleep really well tonight, I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock and I'm going to make better choices than if I slept poorly. And those better choices at 9 lead to better choices at 11, which lead to better choices at 1. And so even for the people out there now listening that might not be thinking about retirement, but maybe they're thinking about an exit or once I sell, once I hire the CEO, once I get a better team in place, then I'm going to get back to prioritizing my health and my relationships and everything that's important to me. And I would just say that like a lot of people out there right now, in my opinion, are not qualified to be making these really important decisions for themselves or their business in their current state of mind. They're anxious, they're tired, they have brain fog, they're not in good shape. Like spend the next month like working out, eating well, sleeping better, and then revisit and make a different choice maybe. Look at you, Daryl, man. Like you are such an inspiration, man. Like tell me that the fact that you have gotten ripped over the past 6 months by getting really clean on your diet and how you're spending your time is not producing a different type of Daryl that's showing up at the office than the one that maybe was showing up a year ago.
100%.
All right, don't worry. I still have time to think of a compliment for you too, Kirk. We got.
No, I appreciate the kind words, but you're absolutely right. It's had a profound shift on me. And, I've gone through some really, really tough times in the business in the last little bit. There's always a lot of stress when you're CEO of a business. I have a mentor of mine who once said, all businesses, all problems, all the time. The businesses that win are the ones that get good at solving problems, right? So my ability to solve problems and show up as the best version of myself, it reminds me, you've probably heard this analogy, the $1 million racehorse. Like if you purchased a $1 million racehorse because you wanted to go race it, you would, take really good care of that horse's diet. You'd have a trainer to stretch it.
Yep.
You would exercise it. You would work it out. You would make sure that it's got the best possible sleep. And, there would be a whole prep session before the actual race. And then that horse would go out and show up as the best possible version of itself to win you that race so that you can make good on your investment. You would not feed it a bunch of junk food and pump it full of recreational drugs and stress it out like crazy and rob it of all of its sleep and then put it out on the racetrack with no prep and expect it to go perform well.
Yeah.
But you are the $1 million racehorse in your life. If you are in a significant relationship with someone else, you are their significant other. There is nobody else. If you're a parent, they've only got one dad or one mom. It's you, right? You are the $1 million. And especially if you're in the more responsible of a role you have inside of your business, wherever it is that you're working, you are the $1 million racehorse. So spending that time investing into yourself, and it's easier said than done. I get that. It takes a tremendous amount of discipline, but look, the work that you're doing to get that message out there to people, I think is extremely important, and it will have a huge impact for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And also I think there's a great analogy in there too, where same thing is true with diet and exercise, right? Like if you were to go for the fire movement on your diet and try to optimize everything instantaneously, right? And suddenly start working out, 7 times a week and 3 hours a day and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, the trade-offs that you're making in there as well, especially if you're overcoming trauma and other eating habits and stuff, it can take years and decades to unwind and healthier and healthier, kind of in that direction. And that collective body of adjusting those things actually be a much more healthy.
Yep. I know we're going to wrap up here pretty soon. This has been a fun conversation, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you at least one question, as with all this wealth of experience you've had with decades in, wealth management for some high profile people. I think you already answered it though. The biggest hack to generating outsized returns for the average person, literally just the time that they spend in the market, as opposed to, getting really, really good, say at stock picking or something like that. What's the advice that you were typically giving to your high net worth clients when they were working with you as far as how they were going to, achieve everything that they wanted to in working with you?
Yeah. I think that when you're working with high net worth people, the stakes are they're not as high I have so many clients now that have $20-30 million, and I did a good job managing their money for them. But if I'm being honest, if they would have if something would have happened to me 15 years ago and they would have another financial advisor, I don't think that they would not have any money. I think that they would still be pretty close to where they are. I think it's the conversations are too geared towards the rate of return, and we're missing having important conversations about other things. So my approach was always okay, I want to retire at 65. Great. What are you going to do? I'm going to travel the world with my spouse. And I'm okay, when was the last time you all went out on a date? And they would look at each other Or I'm going to play golf 4 days a week when I retire, but you haven't been to the gym in 5 years and you just had your hip replaced. So when is this going to happen? It was me asking questions like that to make sure that they were, in alignment, that they were living their lives in a way. I had three questions I read in a financial planning book probably 25 years ago. And I was inspired to have these 3 questions I would ask all my clients on a pretty regular basis. And I called it the alignment audit. And the questions are, if you won $50 million tomorrow, how would your life change? This would give us insights into how much do you like your work? Is there anything that you're putting off right now that maybe you should be thinking about doing? Question number 2 is you go to see a doctor. The doctor tells you that you have a year to live. How are you spending those next 12 months? And the third question is the doctor said, you're actually going to die tomorrow. What was your biggest regret? And I walk my clients through these questions to really help them realize that maybe they're too focused on the ROI, they're too focused on their money, and they're not focused enough on the compounding benefits of investing in their relationships or their health or some of these other things. I'll give you another one that's a little bit more tactical. And I think that maybe one of the best things that I've done for the majority of my clients is have the long-term care insurance conversation with my clients as it pertains to their parents. So I was working with a lot of 40 and 50-year-olds who were partners at big law firms and execs and business owners. And I would say to them, do you know much about your parents' financial situation? And if something happened to them, can they afford to pay for the nursing care? Can they afford to fund this other thing? I don't know. I've never talked to my parents before. And so whether I could give my client 9% on their investments, and then their dad gets Alzheimer's disease, lives for 9 years with this debilitating condition, didn't have any money. My client had to withdraw their money from all their investment accounts to make sure their dad didn't end up on the street at some point. And so I think it's less about, I think whether you get 7 or 8%, I think most people are going to be okay. I think that continuing to work longer and planning to work for a longer period of time also plays a big role. So for example, I've got some clients that are still working and earning an income, even if it's not a lot. And I've got some clients that aren't working and earning an income at all. And both sets of these clients have significant assets. They have $20, $30 million. They're never going to run out of money. And it is amazing to see the difference and how much easier it is for the person that's just earning $100,000 a year, how much easier and more of a carefree way they spend their money compared to the one that is completely done, that's only taking withdrawals, that's not adding to it anymore. I had to keep telling them, spend your money, it's fine, trust me, don't worry about it. And they still are a little bit antsy compared to the ones that still have that earning potential. It's they're subconsciously, they know they can always earn more if something terrible were to happen and they were to lose a chunk of their money. I did this with my parents, the Alzheimer's thing too. I realized I probably didn't land the plane there, but I had this conversation with my parents. I helped them set up a good long-term care insurance policy. And my dad ended up getting dementia at 62. And he had it for 9 years before he passed away in 2022. And that policy ended up saving my mom a few $1 million that she was able to draw from. And I've had so many of my clients say they have parents that are not doing great or that went through a bad time. They're regardless of a lot of the investments, choices and advice that you gave me, that conversation was the one that had the biggest impact, for me. And I'm not sitting here selling anything right now anymore. I just think that I'm trying to help people think about the questions that they should be asking beyond just the sexier ones, what's my rate of return going to be?
Yeah. Well, that was a powerful nugget of wisdom that you just dropped there, DC. I appreciate that so much. Where can people find out more about you and the book and get a copy of it, all that kind of good stuff?
Yeah, go to my website, derekcoburn.com. Here's the book. We just became a USA Today bestseller last week, which is exciting. Hit #1 in retirement and personal finance on Amazon. And I'm just excited to play the long game with this one, guys. I'm going on a lot of podcasts. I joke, we have a lot of New York Times bestselling authors and thought leaders. And I always say that with Cadre, one of the benefits of being a Cadre member is you don't have to read the book because we bring them in and they give an hour-long keynote or we do a fireside chat with them. And I'm really proud that I wrote a book that we can't scratch the surface of in an hour. And so I want people to read this book. I don't really have any coaching or anything else that I'm selling at this time. And would love people to buy it and read it. Let me know what they think about it. And yeah, that's really it, guys. Nothing really promote or pitch here.
Amazing. Well, we'll make sure that that goes into the show notes as well when it launches. And I think it's a really noble mission that you're on with it. And I'm super inspired and happy for you, buddy. And happy to do
Thanks.
whatever little things that we can to support along the way.
I'm sure you guys have talked about this before, but I think that you mentioned the curation earlier with respect to Cadre. And I wanted to say this before, and I really want to say it now because I owe Kirk a compliment. The main reason why the curation part has been so good for us with Cadre is that I always had the wealth management business revenue paying the bills. And I didn't have to worry about making an exception for anyone in order, like, I join my community, even though you're not a good fit because I need this money to fund my kids' 529 accounts, right? And so I think that it's what's been really fun to watch, Kirk do. And I remember we were having conversations about this a long time ago, is I think that there's just a lot of benefit to having a couple of businesses going side by side at the same time in terms of like the choices you get to make about who you're going to work with and how you have to show up. And I think, Kirk, once you started, CU 2.0 and you realized you didn't have to put up with as much crap maybe on like the other side, and you could really show up in a more brave, in a way that was much more indicative of who you were as a human. You got to be yourself. You didn't have to like perform for anybody. You started attracting more people that loved you for that. And I would argue and say that I think that because you had some of that steady revenue coming in, that it freed you to kind of maybe do that in a way that you wouldn't have done if it was going to be like your only gig.
I definitely think there is a lot of truth to whether it's a startup, mature business, multiple businesses. It's really hard to stay pure to the values and the mission and the client that you want when you need that client to the table, right?
Yeah.
And every time where I've worked in a business or run a business where I signed the deal because I needed the cash flow, right? I always regretted that client, and that's when you sign bad business. That's when you get bad friends. That's when, you eat the cheesecake, whatever it is, versus making sure that you've got the right set of things that allow you to make the right choices. So I 100% agree in that. And again, even to tie it all up with a bow, I think of that 14-year-old me having the wisdom to know that it is that you need to stay true to the right decisions and not make those decisions from scarcity, right? Because what I was solving for to retire by 40 was a reaction to my parents and to the fear of not having money, not towards maximizing the opportunities and the things that I could do to make the best version of myself. And if you make the best version of yourself and you optimize those things, the rest of the stuff comes along. Right? And it comes along effortlessly, faster than you ever could imagine, in a way that grinding it out and making those desperate decisions never does. Right.
Yeah.
It's just been really fun watching you get to show up and just lean into just really being you the way that you are, and watching like the success that comes with that, right? Where like comparing it to other endeavors, it's so funny how we feel like we need to show up and be a certain way for certain people. But when we really get to be ourselves and our true essence, the way that you've been able to do with like writing the book and like leading your community, it's just really been a great thing to watch, and a great thing to, I'm sure, tons of great value that you've been able to bring to the table for so many people too.
Well, thank you for stroking my ego and giving me a compliment.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. I got more too, but well, that's enough for today.
That's good.
I love both of you guys a lot, and really, really appreciate like your friendship and support over the years, and just had a lot of fun having this conversation with you.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Thanks for going on today.
Right back at you, buddy. This was a lot of fun for us. Hopefully I know the audience is going to get some good value out of it as well, but hopefully they had as much fun as we did listening to it.
Amazing.
Awesome. We'll leave you on it, buddy. Appreciate you making the time so much. Good luck with everything. And we'll make sure that the book and the website, all that stuff's in the show notes, and hopefully it gets out there and does a lot of good. I know it will.
Thank you, brother.
Cheers, guys.
See you.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Money Mavericks. We hope you found it insightful and inspiring.
Don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. And be sure to share this episode with someone who needs to hear it.
Stay connected with us on social media and visit our website for exclusive resources, episode transcripts, and more.
Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries, making smart moves, and turning your financial dreams into realities.
You've been listening to Money Mavericks, where Mavericks become legends.